they sell it? Did they lose it? Did they split up? Are they together or apart and far away? Where's the mother who used to close the window? Where's the father who used to slam the door? Where's the kids who used to play out in the farmyard? Do they visit their parents anymore? I wonder who owns the land it sits on, and I wonder if the folks are free from harm. Just another empty farmhouse with a story about what used to be another family farm.
Okay, with that, we're about ready to start the sale. I want to thank you, Rick. You've done a good job of getting your machinery all here and cleaned up and lined up for the people.
The day of the sale, it was a day that I didn't know how I was going to be able to hold up or how I was going to react to it or whatever. My two brothers, Ron and Garfield, were here to help, and that was a lot of fun. We did a lot of crying, we did a lot of laughing. There was a lot of emotions that went through that day. To see the cars lined up, etc., it was difficult. It was to see the end of what Dad had worked so hard to build was very difficult.
22 and a half. 2 and a half. 2 and a half. Yep.
As our children grew up and went to college, none of them were interested in farming until Rick came along. And he said he would like to go farming, and that's how come Rick started farming, which was a surprise to us because when the kids go off to the city, they kind of forget about the farm. But he loved being out in the country. He didn't care too much for the city and came back to the farm and made a very good farmer.
As far as Rick coming out and starting farming, it came at a very opportune time. It seemed that way that it was so easy to say, sure, why don't you do that? Because I never thought Rick would. His interests always seemed to be music, and he was a very capable boy, and he could do, I'd say, anything he wanted to do. And I didn't think that he would ever perhaps come out and start farming because he knew from experience from the home a lot of the heartaches and a lot of the disappointments that we have as farmers. You know, there's always something that you have in the back of your mind, you know, as a farm. I wonder if one of my sons would take over and continue on. Because you have close ties with the farm, and even if you aren't operating it, it's there.
Yeah, we'll sell the basket afterwards, sir. Sure, that's where that other vendor went. Right there in the bundle here. You bet right there, and sell a good tractor to you first, then. Sell a good tractor to you first, then.
And I think there's no greater place on earth to live than the land. And we tried to bring up our children in a Christian home. That was number one in our life and their lives. And I think it's been the mainstay in their lives, too. And I think the farm, there's no better place to bring up children and show them all these things that God provides us daily. The land, the sun, and the rain, and the crop. We can put it in, but God gives a dividend, and that's been our whole life. And as He has blessed us, we have shared it with others in many ways. And so farming has been a good place for us to live.
It was a situation that I had an opportunity to go on in my own college education, and Pat had a job in the cities at the time, and we both made a decision that we were going to come back to the farm and take over. Dad had made it known that if one of us hadn't come back to take over, they were going to retire and rent out the land. And so I came back to Lake Lillian, and Dad and I, that year after we took the crop out, that fall of '80, we sat down and I had to develop a 5-year cash flow range to show any lenders so I could borrow the money to buy out Dad's machinery. The first 2 years went pretty much as expected. I started finishing hogs, and that helped boost the farm income. At the time, Dad and I were running a seed farm, so I was growing Minnesota public seed and also selling 2 private label seeds along the side. And Pat, of course, was working at the state hospital to just help our month-to-month cash flow. And the first 2 years, it went as expected, about as close as could be expected. And then the third year, things started to change. We had literally no rain during July, and so that it hurt the yields that year. And then along with the poor yields we had that fall, we had poor prices. And so it immediately put me in a financial bind that I could not pay back all the people that I owed money to. As of when I started farming, Dad was co-signed on my signature, co-signed for me at the Lake Lillian Bank to get my operating loan. And because he was co-signed, they agreed to let us farm another year. The financial situation looked good. They thought the prices were going to come back, etc.
So in Rick's case, we met several times. Rick is a very analytical person, a good business manager, and took advantage of all of the market things that he could. He was able to hedge his hogs properly, where guaranteeing himself a profit, and he did as well as anybody along those lines. He is one of the few farmers that comes in with computer sheets, and he would say, "This is my plan," and I mean, he really thought his plans out well.
We tried to be of a definite support to him during the years he was farming, and I believe we were, because Dad had to co-sign a lot of notes. And when things didn't go so good, Dad got hooked, see, for those things.
And so then I scrambled as much as I could to see where I could cut the corners, where I could try to make the wisest decision. I went into hogs a little heavier. I was finishing out a few more hogs. We cut back on fertilizer. Did a few things like that. And, well, after that 4th year, the prices really fell apart. And it came to be that, again, I could not pay back all the people I owed besides the carryover from the year before. And so here I was in a situation of desperate financial dire straits. It was a situation that I could not look the other way. I could not. Dad was on the note, so I couldn't just say, okay, things are going to get better. I'll just use Dad to be my back pocket for me. This last winter, when we were trying to scramble to figure out what we're going to do, if we're going to keep on farming, if we're going to quit, etc., it was hard. Like Mom said, there was many sleepless nights. Talked to many personal people, finance people, to see if I could find money other than conventional lending institutions. Basically played out my hand, what I could do to keep the farming going, because pride is involved, carrying on the family tradition. But we had to make the decision that it was not going to keep on going, and I guess that's, to put it in a nutshell, what happened.
Just not getting the prices the first couple of years he started just set him back to the point where he could see things were going in the wrong direction and wanted to get out before it was, you know, totally too late.
I kept precise records. I kept day-to-day, actually, records of what was happening with the farm. I knew day-to-day where I was financially, where it was going. Maybe that's why I got out as soon as I did, because I could see the handwriting on the wall.
13 there, 14 there, and 14 there, 13, 13, 14, 13 there, 14 there, and 50 bucks here, 40, 50, 60, 60 bucks here, 50 and 41, 67, 70 here, and 70, 81, 70, 80 bucks here, $80 here, $80 there, 70 there, 81, $80 $80 there, 70, 80 here, 80 bucks here, 70 here, $80 there. I sold it to him, $70.
It was a difficult decision to help Rick to decide that this was the year that he better quit farming, because of the forecast for prices this year was really, really bad, and we could see no future, and so we had a lot of discussions, Rick and Pat and Art and I, and a lot of prayer went into our decisions on the part of all of us, and when we decided that this was the year that he should quit farming, we felt, I can't say we felt good about it, but we were at peace that that was the decision that had to be made for all of us.
It's sort of a end of an era, you might say, because I had in mind that Rick would be, if things went, he'd be farming the farm. And even if something would happen that Edith and I weren't living around here or something, that'd be nice to come back here because Rick was there, you know.
I guess I'd like to say here is that Rick and I have always felt we'd like to fashion our family after our families. My family was very Christian also, but I guess coming out to the farm we had a dream. We wanted to have a family like Art and Edith had, raise our children. We think they did a good job. I know they did. And we wanted to carry on that tradition also, and felt a farm and country community would be a wonderful place to do that. People reach out to each other and give each other all kinds of support when you're in trouble, if your barn blows down, if your house burns up, if anything health-wise happens. People are there with potluck dinners. They'll rebuild your barn for you. I mean, all of that. We'd seen that. I'd seen that in just the few years I've been here. So that was another part that we feel a loss for if we do have to move out of the community because we are done farming.
Dad always said it wasn't such a great way to make a living, but it was a great way to live.
Yeah, you know, just the fact that this land has produced enough income for all of us to go to college, you know, didn't pay for it all. I mean, we had to supplement with some work ourselves, but it's given us a good life as a family. And it has been a good life, even though there have been struggles. But I guess somebody else will have to take the risks now from now on. We're going to be out of it.
The hardest thing I did during this whole thing was to write the letter to the family telling them the situation. So at that point, there was a total reality of the situation. I'm done farming, and then I had to tell them the steps of how it happened. I didn't have to, but I chose to because I wanted them to know what was going on. I don't know if I ever felt a failure. I felt defeated. I felt very defeated.
I felt bad. Rick knows we felt bad. I hope we can change that feeling so we could feel better. If the farmer could get a price for his product, a fair price for his product, there wouldn't be a farm problem. There's many times, you know, they said you've overproduced on the farm. You produce too much, and that's the reason why. Well, I don't know if that's the answer. I think it's distribution of our God-given gifts of crop and grain and livestock and everything that we have in this country. There's so many in the world that are needing that. We see that situation, and well, we don't know who to hit because we get kind of angry at the whole thing.
Pain came in waves. You know, after the decision that we were going to quit farming, it was a very big relief. At least at that point, then we could get on with our lives and know what's going to happen after that. The period between November, was it February that we decided that we were going to quit, was long. It was a long time. I probably lost another inch of hair during that three months. It was a very stressful time. You wonder about what people are saying as they're walking around the sale. You'd love to be something so you could hear what the little clicks as you see your neighbors standing together, what they're saying. We had a lot of good support, but yet again, there are so many of my young friends that could not give support because they're in the same situation. What do they say? You know, I've talked to them about it. You know, at the day of the sale, they couldn't say much, but, you know, as I've talked to them later, they just, maybe we should have done it this year too, Rick. You know, so I know they're going through that same type of, where do we turn? What do we do, you know?
Well, last night I had a dream that I woke up, it was about 1:30. I woke up, actually I thought it was really happening, that people were here at the farm place stealing all the equipment and everything. And so I ran downstairs and I looked out all the windows. I could hear voices, I could hear machinery being moved, and that was real scary to me. I didn't know what to do, so I came down and looked, and there wasn't anyone there, and I realized it was a dream.
I don't know if I mentioned to you how difficult it was for me to come to the sale. When Rick wrote us and told us that he was quitting farming, my initial feelings were anger. And I felt that way for a couple of weeks. And then I started to face up to the fact that that's the way that things are right now for him, and that he was going to have to sell out. But it's so disappointing. I told Lillian before I left home that it's like going to a funeral, because sort of an era is coming to an end in our family. And I didn't realize how much that meant to me until this week.
Off the tractor, $15,000 even in background.
189.
189. Make sure you get that number right. 189. 189. Rick, is there anything else?
How do you feel about all of this?
I've been denying my real feelings because I'm afraid that, maybe it's because I'm afraid of the unknown. I was talking to Rick in that one of the things that, in spite of the fact that this is all happening, I believe that they'll have a very good future whatever happens. It's the folks that I really worry about, because in a sense it's like bringing closer the reality that it is a finality in a sense. It's like retirement and people not knowing what to do. I think the inevitable is here for the folks in that their whole lives have been farming.
I don't know. It's, I know what it's like. It's a grieving process, and I guess I'm starting to go through that, and they haven't quite gone through that. They're still in the shock phase, I think, and they are going to grieve just like as if they lost something they love.
Pastors in our rural communities are really feeling the stress themselves. One of the dangers, and yet that's also the strength, is that they identify so much with what is happening to their people that they begin to carry that load. And it's beginning to affect their families, and the stress symptoms are beginning to show with them as well. On the other hand, we do have a lot of pastors who are still struggling to understand what this is all about, who aren't from a rural community, and if they haven't served for a long time in a rural community, it takes some time to really come to understand and appreciate what this means to rural people.
Thinking about that, the feelings that were evident in that movie Country, and then I was immediately reminded of the day that I was out at the farm sale, and frustration, feelings of helplessness, wondering, what can I do? You see that farm equipment's being sold for pennies on a dollar, and realizing that you're not getting what it's worth, and yet at the same time realizing that other farmers are going to be allowed to stay in farming only as long as they can secure or purchase machinery at a cheaper rate. And so it's a real dilemma with survival. I could see a loss of identity. I remember Rick Nordine made a comment once to me, and I could really feel that day, that you don't feel like a failure, you just simply feel defeated. And I guess that was part of my feeling that day too. And I remember before I left embracing Rick and crying, because I just did. I felt so helpless and so unable to bring a resolve to a situation that was beyond our control.
Well, it's been very, very difficult to see that we couldn't continue with Rick farming. And we feel terrible because it was no fault of our own and certainly no fault of his, but it was these very low prices, high interest, and it's been very, very difficult to see that happen, and it's painful. And we're just one of the few that's going through this experience. Our local town is feeling it, and our county seat is feeling it, and we feel that sooner or later the cities are going to feel what's happening to all our rural families out here.
And the way the farm economy's been, there's just no buyers for it here today. Nobody's got the cash to buy the equipment with. I've been walking around, everyone you talk to thinks the machinery is really cheap and would like to be buying it, but they just don't have the cash to do it with.
Well, we've had a day that we'll think about for a long time. I know that Rick had to sell out because he just wasn't able to make it go. And Rick is a good manager, good farmer. I watched him, and he worked hard. But the load got too heavy financially. And I wish that there was something we could say or do that could help this. I don't know.
Okay, I guess that's it. On behalf of Rick Nordine, I'd like to thank you one and all for coming out. It's been a good crowd to sell to. Got a sale tomorrow over at Clare City there for Harold Tebben. Got another one of those good 6-row John Deere planters on that sale tomorrow. Got a multi-weeder on there. Got a good line of equipment over there tomorrow. Then Friday will be...
Can't we wake up? Can't we wake up? Did we treat these people in a way that's fair? Have we lost them? Have we lost them? Are the people who grow our food still there? I wonder who owns the land it sits on, and I wonder if the folks are free from war. but we used to be another family farm. Just another empty farmhouse with a story, but what used to be another family.